Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Cole. It's Sunday night, June 23rd. This will be week 8 for Political Science 1013 for the summer 2024 term. Okay, everybody. Term papers are due Thursday the 27th, which is also the date of the presidential debate, for which we're offering 5 points extra credit, according to an announcement that went out just a little while ago. Then Friday is our final exam. So the summer term is coming to a close. The exam will be all day Friday for 24 hours. The material will be Units 7 and 8, plus the class notes for those units, plus 4 articles I've asked you to access online. Let's see what we have. We have an article about a recent Supreme Court decision regarding a medication used to induce abortion. Mifepristone, I believe it's called. Okay. We have an article about a political activist who tape recorded surreptitiously Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Alito at a reception held recently by the Supreme Court Historical Society, I believe it was. So both Roberts and Alito were caught speaking out of school, we might say, not realizing that they were being recorded. All right, then you have an article about members of Congress retiring and declining to run for re-election and the reasons for that. Finally, the final article will be an article that consisted largely of an interview with Senator Sinema of Arizona and her thoughts about the future of the United States Senate's filibuster. Okay. Now, everybody, you've received a link to these. Okay. An announcement that contains a link to all 4. Please check those links. Contact me if there's anything you cannot access. We've had a couple of things recently from the Washington Post, including a discussion topic and a couple of things for the exam. You could run into a paywall there, conceivably. And in that case, contact me. I will get the material to you, but you don't want to leave it for the last minute. So please check that you can access all those articles, and if you cannot, contact me. We'll make arrangements to get the material to you. All right then, everybody. 50 items as in the past, 2 false and multiple choice. 10 or 15 coming from the assigned outside readings, the rest from the class notes. So let's conclude by taking a look at what we're trying to do with the class notes from Unit 8 on Congress. Now, there's 2 aspects to studying Congress. There's members' relations with their constituents, and also the inner workings of Congress on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. You could call that the outside and the inside perspective. Okay, we take the outside first. Okay, talk about members and their relations with their constituents. That largely consists of election and re-election campaigns. We begin by going through the membership of Congress from our area, the Oklahoma Panhandle and surrounding states, because we want to make sure everyone knows who their representatives in Congress are, especially their member of the House, which is important for certain purposes, which will become clear as you go through those class notes. We talk about the kind of people who serve in Congress, okay, the fact that white males predominate, but there's been some tendency to make the body more diverse with the passage of time. Now, we emphasize that members are pretty much on their own trying to get elected to Congress. It's something of a free-for-all in which candidates compete to win the right to list themselves as the nominee of their party, either the Republican or the Democratic Party, when the general election comes. candidates are responsible for raising their own money, putting their own campaign organization together for purposes of such things as advertising, making campaign appearances, and raising funds. The political parties help to a very limited extent with all that. So basically, people are on their own trying to win the right to run for Congress as the nominee of their party. Now, in the House of Representatives especially, most seats are safe for one of the political parties or the other, because members and especially state legislatures have intervened to draw districts that way to ensure that just about everybody will have a safe seat. Perhaps 10% or less of all seats, 40 or 50 seats, can be regarded as competitive seats in which a candidate of either party might have a good chance to win. Okay, which means elections very often are not competitive. General elections especially. There may be more interest in the party primaries than the general election, because if one party or the other is dominant, then people take the attitude that the party primary is the real election, shall we say. And in today's circumstances, that means very often that what a member most fears is a primary challenge from within his or her own party, raising the possibility that you might be primaried or denied your own party's nomination, even though you're an incumbent member of Congress from that party. Now, to one extent or another, serving in Congress, especially the House of Representatives, once you get there, it's a fairly safe seat, generally, for a number of terms, maybe a decade or so, before a member of the House of Representatives might make a mistake, commit a blunder, do something that makes that member vulnerable to being defeated for election. There are a number of things that members do to perpetuate their own election and re-election for term after term after term after term. One aspect of it is fundraising. Okay. Lobbyists, representatives of pressure groups, know that incumbent members more than likely will get re-elected. Okay. And so those incumbent members have an edge in fundraising. Okay. Representatives of organized interests want to give money to the people they expect will be serving in Congress after the next election. And very often that means the incumbent member from a particular district. Members do things to ingratiate themselves with their constituents, okay, by means of, by and large, the expenditure of money. We mention such terminology as casework and pork barrel. Okay. Casework consists of favors done by members for particular individuals in their district. Okay. Members have an operation set up by which individuals from their district can put in a request for intervention with a unit of the government that may be causing them difficulty. For instance, a benefit check has been delayed, or maybe a family member is trying to immigrate into the country from abroad. There are any number of things for which you might request favors from your member of Congress, and that's known as casework. And people look first and foremost to their House member for that, which is why it is important to know who your House member is. Pork barrel spending can be described as, shall we say, casework on a larger scale. Favors done for entire communities, or perhaps the entire district, rather than one individual at a time. Securing of money in the federal budget to do things like, build a new post office, or maybe get a defense installation placed in your district, or perhaps having a new defense system or weapon system built in whole or in part in your district, or perhaps the building of infrastructure such as roads, bridges, and such with the assistance of federal money. So then members can point to all that stuff that's been done to make a case that they've helped get the voters in their district their fair share of federal funds in returns for the taxes that they pay. Okay, so there are many, many things that members can do to ingratiate themselves with their constituents and perpetuate their reelection from one term to the next, And once a member of the House especially, gets elected the first time around, okay, if they serve a term or two, once they're able to do that, they may be fairly safe in office for a decade or so. There are many, many things that they do, as we said, to perpetuate themselves and enhance their prospects for re-election. All right, looking at Capitol Hill itself, okay, the inner workings of the United States Congress from inside Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. We mention the structure of Congress, the important leadership positions, the committee and subcommittee system, all of which is employed to move a bill through Congress by means of the technique or the method known as regular order. However, while we need to know what regular order is and how it works, Congress increasingly has gotten away from regular order for the past generation or so, because Congress has become so evenly and bitterly divided, very often it becomes difficult, if not impossible, to reach any agreement across party lines to pass legislation, especially on major items of legislation, such as the budget. Okay. In a case like that, what may happen is negotiations will take place among the White House and the leadership of both parties. Okay. And they will come up with legislation that may be submitted directly to the floor of the House and the Senate without going through the committee and subcommittee system. Okay. It's been typical of the past generation or so in Congress for it to work that way, especially with regard to the budget. Okay. We find it very difficult to get a budget passed on time for the beginning of the fiscal year. Very often it's 6 months into the fiscal year before we can actually get the budget passed. And very often that will be done by means of the intervention of the leadership to sort of bypass regular order. But for much legislation, routine legislation, regular order still works, which consists of legislation being submitted to a subcommittee in the House and the Senate, then from the subcommittee to the full committee, and from the full committee to the floor of either the House or the Senate, with the additional step of the Rules Committee in the House, which must pass a rule governing debate on the floor of the House for every bill, because in the House, unlike the Senate, debate is not unlimited. Okay, so we need to be aware of how regular order works, but also that Congress has found it necessary to get away from regular order quite often, much of the time in the past generation or so. We then talk about a number of topics. We talk about the Senate tradition of the filibuster, the budget as the special, as a example of a special type of legislation, but legislation just like any other in some respects. It has to be passed every year. We talk about the life of a member of Congress or the House of Representatives, especially, and the amount of time that must be devoted to fundraising. We talk about the difference between a member of Congress, of the legislature, looking at him or herself as a trustee as opposed to a delegate. Watch out for that terminology. And once we've done all that, we're at a point where we're able to stop and say a few words about where things stand in the political system as a whole as we approach the presidential election of 2024. And I must say, everybody, it's not an especially happy situation right now. Okay. Perhaps the best thing that we hope for is that the losing side in November 2024 will rather sullenly and perhaps with some bitterness accept the result. But it may be that we're not able to do that without a great deal of dispute, protest, litigation, and perhaps even violence, although we certainly hope that it will not come to that. The country is bitterly and evenly divided, and has reached a point at which we really don't know how the 2024 election is going to be resolved. But it's really out of our hands to a large extent, although we hope everyone will exercise their citizenship responsibilities and go ahead and cast a vote. That then brings to an end Legal Science 1013 for the summer 2024 term. We hope it's opened everyone's eyes to things going on in our system of which you might not have been aware before. I perhaps will try to get one more brief announcement out before the final exam on Friday, but keep in mind, the final is Friday. Term papers, if you choose to do one, are due the day before on Thursday the 27th, which is also the date of the presidential debate, for which we're offering 5 points extra credit if you'd like to do that. You may find it necessary to complete that assignment after the fact by looking at a video of the debate sometime after it happens rather than live, because we will be getting involved in getting our term papers in and getting ready for the final exam that Thursday evening when the debate actually takes place. So look at it on video via YouTube or through one of the TV network's websites if necessary. And I do not need to have that until over the weekend, that I can get that in and get everything graded, compile grades to be turned in at the end of business day, Monday, July 1st. So, thanks for being with us this summer. Take it easy, study hard, and we hope everyone does well. I'm sure everyone will on the final exam and the term paper if you're doing one, to bring POLS 1013 for the summer 2024 term to an end. So, thanks again. Contact me if necessary through the course website or at david.cole@opsu.edu. Let me know in case of any last-minute difficulties. Otherwise, we wish everybody good luck on the final exam and the term paper if you're doing one. Take it easy, study hard.